Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to CL Startup 2024. Again, this is the place in terms of those that are curious, those that want to explore new ideas, that are literally essentially shaking up the food and beverage industry here at CL 2024. You can see all around us right now, all of these startups deep in conversation. People are biting, people are biting, chewing, tasting, having a delicious taste of everything they have to offer. And again, helps us kind of understand really where we're moving forward to, certainly in this industry of tomorrow. Again, this is also a place of discussion, perspectives, ideas, insights. Again, to help us make sense of certainly this space within the startup world, but also again helping you make the right decisions moving forward. What we're going to do now is jump into essentially best practices between startups and corporates and startups. That link, that balance between the two can sometimes be quite a challenge to navigate, can be sometimes quite a challenge to get right. But again, you'll agree with me, when it does go right, it can be very, very good indeed, certainly for both parties. What we're going to do now is jump into a conversation to help us understand that more in a deeper sense, but again, help us make sense of it more as well. And when we're faced in those same situations, will help us make better decisions. Sounds good? Certainly does. Ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce now the people that are going to share with you their perspectives on all of this. Please welcome to the stage, first of all, Vice President and Global Head of MDLZ, SnackFutures Mondelez International, Mr. Richard Gray. That's you, Mr. Richard Gray. Absolutely surprised. What a lovely title. Yes, that's you. I'll take a seat there. Together with Richard, we also have Head of Venture from Sparkfood, Anouk Veber. Anouk, take a seat. There we are. And also the man who we've seen already quite a few times, certainly here at CL Startup, really helping us, responsible for kind of putting all this together as well. Please welcome to the stage CEO of Sesamers, Mr. Ben Costantini.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for hosting us here at CL Startups. Pleasure to have our guest today with us, and thank you for joining us. Can I get a sense quickly of what it is that you do? What is your company about? Starting with you, Anouk.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Anouk. I'm the head of venture at Sparkfood, which is a Portuguese fund that is investing broadly in the world in all food tech and ag tech spaces. And Sonai is a big conglomerate in Portugal that is a food retailer, real estate. They have many different activities, and it's still a family-owned company. And the second generation that took over the company decided to allocate part of their profits towards the food transition. So I'm leading all the venture investments for them.
Thank you. Richie.
Hi everyone, I'm Richie, not Richard, so only my mum calls me Richard. Most people call me Richie. I run SnackFutures Ventures, which is the corporate venture capital arm of Mondelez. If you haven't heard of Mondelez, you'll certainly heard of our brands, Lou, Côte d'Or, Milka, Cadbury, Oreo. In SnackFutures Ventures, we're a global group that are looking to invest in early and some later stage businesses that we see as offering disruption potential either to our portfolio or to our technologies that help us make our portfolio better. So we invest in a variety of stages from pre-seed through to Series B, even Series C and beyond. Work closely with our founders and their management teams using the resources of Mondelez to help them scale their businesses. Been doing that for about 18 months and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I really like the name of the fund, like Snack Ventures. It's a funny catchy name. I like to explain things, use this time to maybe teach or educate a little bit as well. And before I go into more specific areas of this panel, I'd like to understand, can you explain to us what is a corporate VC, like a CVC? Because actually, technically, both of your VCs are CVCs. Maybe Anouk, you want to explain what it is for us here.
On our side, we have a kind of dual CVC because first, we are part of a big group, this conglomerate that I was mentioning, that is called Sonai, and we are collaborating with them on the food retail side of things. So they have supermarkets, especially in the Iberian country, and our role is to bring innovation for their supermarkets. But then I would say the main purpose of the venture of Sparkfood is to feed the private equity side of Sparkfood. So within the fund that is called Sparkfood, we have two main strategies. One is on private equity, and the goal is to create a big ingredient company in the long term, and the VC arm of this ingredient platform that we are building at the same time. So I'm at the same time collaborating with the food retailers from the group side of things, but also with the ingredient platform where I need to bring them innovation not to be disrupted in some years from now.
And let's get the ID card of the fund, how big it is, what are the tickets?
Yeah. On the venture side, we are investing about 150 million with tickets between 1 to 5 million size. And the ambition is to invest 1 billion throughout the whole Sparkfood fund, so with the VC and the private equity strategy that we have. But to keep in mind, this is not an amount that is under management properly, because we are taking the money directly from the balance sheet of the group. So depending on the results, I might not be there in 5 years' time, let's see. But the ambition is to invest about 1 billion.
Thank you. Same question for you at Mondelez. A regular CVC, different formats, how does it work? And tell us the ID card of the fund.
One thing I've learned in my 18 months in this role is that there's no such thing as a regular CVC, actually, and every CVC takes different format. In the case of Mondelez, we are very much a strategic vehicle for the company. We're quite closely integrated to the parent company. We don't operate as a fund as such. We invest, everything is case by case. We invest off the company balance sheet. We probably have around 50 million of capital that we've deployed to date in the sort of 4 or 5 years that we've been in existence. And it kind of, in terms of funds under management, it kind of evolves, because we often seek a full acquisition when the founder is ready to exit. We've done that once so far, a company called Hue Chocolates in the US. So it's a bit of an ongoing cycle, but very much strategic investor, case by case. In terms of check sizes, they vary. We've invested everything from sort of 500,000 through to about 15 million. Really depends on the stage. We nearly always follow on in the investments that we make. So when we invest, it's less about the financial returns and more about the long-term strategic potential of a business, and therefore we see it as a long-term relationship as we engage with the founders to help them get to ultimately their exit and hopefully an acquisition for us.
And continuing to understand the differences between both companies, if I get it well, maybe at SnackVentures you're looking a bit more into brands, and in your case more into R&D or some innovation ingredients you were mentioning, for example? Is it the case, or?
Yeah, on our side, the strategy is really to bring like breakthrough innovation. So we are really looking towards biotech innovation, quite heavy R&D, and B2B only, correct. We are focusing on ingredient solutions oriented, as we want to feed our ingredient platforms with those new technologies, correct.
In our case, it's both. Probably weighted more towards brands, because that's, you know, a full business brand bundle is something that we could see as being something that could be part of our portfolio in the future. But we have invested and will continue to invest in technologies that are relevant for alternative ingredients, particularly in the areas of well-being and sustainability. So it is both for us, yeah.
One of the first questions I wanted to address today, and to continue diving into the specifics of working with a corporate VC, how do you identify a good fit, a good company? This is really something maybe for startups is sometimes hard to understand, that on your side, building this partnership is quite complex in the sense that you have to check certain boxes, and the fit needs to be pretty straightforward in terms of what the partnership will look like. I'd like to get a bit of an understanding of how you do that, what are you looking for, maybe things that this audience doesn't really know about, that they should know about when they're approaching you. Who wants to take it?
I'll go first, yeah. There's three things. I think let's start with the people side first of all, because that sort of cultural compatibility is very important. I mean, you can't expect an early stage business to have the same corporate culture as a huge company like Mondelez. But in terms of having a feel for, is this a founder that we can work with? Is the founder coachable? Do we see it being a partnership? What are the long-term objectives? Are we aligned from that point of view? So getting a lot of that clarified early on is really important. And we have had some instances where that hasn't been done and we have hit problems further down the road. So that is really important, is kind of making sure that there's a good fit there from a people point of view and that your long-term objectives are aligned. I think the other area that we're getting more picky about when we look at businesses is, even in the early stages, focus on the right level of focus on cost and profitability. I think my attitude when I first came into this was, well, if something is not profitable to do today, that's okay, we'll sort that out in the future. That's not always the case, so we look for signs. We don't expect a business to be making money at EBITDA level, but certainly we want to see healthy gross margins or a very clear path to good profitability. So having that eye on cost as well as on growth in the early stages is really important to us, and that's something that you can't always teach. You know, you kind of see in founders whether they have that mindset early on or not. And then I think the third area is being able to find that blend of being clear where's the value that we can add as Mondelez, and where do we absolutely need to just let the founder and their team, leave them alone and let them get on with it. So yeah, I think they're probably the three key areas that we look at.
And how many people on your side can contribute to this coaching, to this support? Like what type of role or positions do they have?
Yeah, it depends. So in my core team, we will engage, I have a person whose only responsibility is to manage our portfolio. So he's there kind of all the time as support. But we then engage resources from Mondelez as required. So for example, we had a company last year in Miami. They'd recently put in their own new manufacturing, had quite a few startup issues with that. So we put a squad of 4 supply chain guys, went down to Miami and worked with them for a week just to go through their process and look at putting a plan in place of how they could improve that, reducing their waste, improving their safety, improving their all-round productivity. We often engage our R&D teams because we find quite, especially with tech investments actually, where it becomes a kind of joint approach to advance and scale a particular technology. And we regularly engage on a commercial level with our sales folks to help open doors, or our marketing folks to help build and improve the marketing plans.
Thank you. Same question, Sparkfood.
On our side, I would say we are less mature than Mondelez as a corporate, and so we are building both at the same time, the ingredient platform and the CVC for this ingredient platform. And so because of this new strategy, we and I have a duty in terms of performance, financial performance. So I'm looking at the same time as traditional IRR that VC might have in general. And so because of that...
You have to say what this acronym, what it is.
The internal return for your investments. So I have a target that is the usual VC target, I would say. And my board is expecting me to deliver on this target in some years from now. And at the same time to bring this strategy, long-term collaboration between the ingredient platform and... So because of that, we are looking at everything that VC are looking at. Team is extremely important. Market size is extremely important. So we won't invest in a very niche ingredients just because there is a potential collaboration with our private equity and all those topics. And then on the other side, I would say, I think that the main fear of corporates is that the startup is dying in a few months after starting the collaboration, putting a lot of efforts in like making sure that this is happening, and then the bankruptcy comes and you lost all the work from corporate and startup sides. So what we are always assessing also is how resilient can be the company cash-wise, and who are the people investing with us in the company. And we will never invest alone, because we need to co-invest with strong investors that can support also the company on the long term and make sure that we're not working for nothing because bankruptcy is tomorrow. So I think this is also something to really consider, is especially nowadays with the current market conditions, who are you investing with?
How do you assess a startup? Let's say you receive a cold email with a pitch deck. What's going on?
I can take it. We have identified some priority segments that we want to work on. So those segments are ticking all the boxes that I was mentioning before: market size, opportunity to innovate in those segments, collaboration with our ingredient platform. So all those criteria has been assessed to identify, I would say, 10 priority segments. And in those priority segments, we are extremely proactive. So when we receive a company, we are assessing it seriously, but we are also proactively looking for all the competitors of those companies and pick what we think is the best fit for us, which doesn't mean it's the best fit for everyone, but what is our best fit. And I would say we try to focus on those priority segments, because if not, you receive too much.
How many decks or pitches do you receive per week or per, I don't know, per day, per year, whatever is the...
So last year was our first year of activity, and we received 1,000 inbounds without being known. So I can't imagine about Mondelez.
Yes, same question for you.
No, it's sort of similar. I think we try and manage a balance of, so it's similar. We know the spaces that we're interested in, so we kind of deep dive into those spaces to learn as much as possible and actively seek businesses in that space. But equally, the reason we do forums like this is to attract opportunities. I love being surprised. There's nothing more exciting than something jumps out and you go, that's different, we hadn't thought about that. So I really love that.
You mentioned one product that you saw earlier here, the cotton candy one.
Yes, yeah, that was an example. I hadn't seen that type of technology, pre-packed sugar-free cotton candy. That was interesting. We were probably similar kind of number. I think we're around 1,000. We have about 4,000 or 5,000 companies in our database at the moment. That's really only been established for a couple of years. We probably looked at 1,000 last year. That doesn't necessarily mean we read 1,000 pitch decks. We probably read around 300 or so pitch decks, but we've encountered 1,000 businesses over the course of the last 12 months.
What are the red flags?
Well, first red flag is if it's not strategically aligned, we just immediately walk away. If it is not differentiated and we see as having potential to disrupt, and it's something that's just a me too, that would be a red flag. And then as you go a little bit deeper, we'll always look at how is a company established itself, what's the current funding, what does the current cap table look like. There's certain criteria that we'll look within that just to see if we're too big a cap table is always a little bit of a watch out, actually.
And location, like if they are based in a certain market, like a certain country, or
if it's a brand, then we like it to be based in a big country. So for us, the big countries would be US, France, UK, Germany, India, China, maybe Brazil. Reason for that is we want to be confident that we want to see a path to significant scale. And the reason for that is if ultimately it's to be part of the Mondelez portfolio, then it needs to justify the resources that go into managing that and making it even bigger. It needs to be of a certain scale. So, and we don't like to rely on geographic expansion to get to that scale. So we want to be confident that a business can get to scale in its home market, and therefore we would look to the big markets for that. For a technology, it really doesn't matter. It could be anywhere because we have R&D centers and plants all over the world, so we're much less fussy on technologies.
What about you, Anouk?
Yeah, I was about to say on our side, because we invest mainly on technologies, it matters less the location of a company. For now, we've been mainly investing in Europe, but we could invest anywhere, basically. What we also look at quite closely is the impact point of view of those investments, because our mandate is really to support the food and ag transition. And so in that sense, we always need to make sure that the core activity of a company is supporting the most sustainable ways of production or an healthier solution. And this needs to be at the core of the activity and the technology that we are financing, not just an ESG reporting things. So this is a box that needs to be ticked. Also linked to what Richie was saying about the cap table, we always want to make sure that the founders and the management team is not diluted too much at an early stage. Because if you are investing in a company where the founder has 2% and still will need more funding down the road, maybe the interests are not that aligned. So this is something we are also quite closely assessing. And then team is super, team for us is extremely important because we are investing in very early stage company, pre-revenue. So we are always doing some personality assessment. We have a head of HR that is doing due diligence, going there, assessing the whole team. We do some ref calls with previous employees, previous managers, to really go deep into the team assessments.
Interesting. In terms of red flags, I would imagine that for R&D or technology-based company, the absence of patents will be a problem, right? And I would like to understand how you approach intellectual property in your space.
We have invested in companies without patents, but there was a road for IP. So we are always assessing what is the road. Maybe trade secret is the way to go for specific reasons. And in that case, you need to assess how strong the trade secret is, how strong are they protecting the trade secret. Then you have also regulatory approval that needs to be assessed when you are investing in companies that require regulatory approval. So where do they stand in terms of dossier creation? Do we have other examples of companies that manage to get a regulatory approval with that specific technologies? So these are things that we are assessing, actually. But as Richie said also before, what we are assessing above all is the differentiation in terms of technology. So we are looking at all the competitors of each investment and assessing how different this is and how the management is able to explain easily the differentiation and the value proposition.
Yeah, I think patents themselves are not essential. We always look for some kind of moat, some kind of protectability, ownability in any business. That can come from the IP or the patents, or we do, I agree with Anouk, that trade secrets is often a better way to go. The moat can also come from, not just from the kind of technological ownership and protection, but sometimes brand can create a moat. That's harder to do and harder to sustain sometimes, but we are willing to look at that. I think my favorite example of that is liquid death in water. Water, look what they've done with brand and clever packaging. So you can create that ownership and that differentiation and that moat through brand, but clearly we will more often than not look for a technological point of difference. When it comes to IP management, that is one that it's a super delicate one, especially when we're engaging our R&D folks and working with a partner. So, we spend a lot of time making sure that the kind of the guardrails are clear on that, so that the founder's IP remains the founder's IP, but that we get the relevant credit, for want of a better word, for where we're injecting thinking and added value from our side. But essentially, we always work to make sure that the founder's IP is held fully intact.
I was wondering also, in your position, do you maybe get some startups who contact you are not a fit for the investment thesis, but could be a partner to work with your company and be like a provider and such?
We do that a lot. On the technical side of things, our R&D team are engaged with a large number of startups, actually. Sometimes that might be a simple material transfer agreement. Sometimes it's a closer strategic partnership, joint development agreement. It's always, with a technical opportunity, that's always the first question, actually. We say, number one, is this technology interesting and relevant for us? Do we see it as being different to its competition, just like Anouk was saying? Number two is, what's then the best way to be able to access that technology? And more often than not, that will come through a partnership that doesn't necessarily need investment. But then if we see that something has got real potential value as a business as well as a technology, that's when we will look to invest.
Similarly with you at Sparkfood, is it something where you work with startups as suppliers as such?
Yeah, totally. We do not invest in all the companies we are working with. I think it's a good way to align interests overall, but in some cases, for example, we have a company that is producing falafel in the UK. They're looking for alternatives in terms of preservatives and so on, and we are in contact with their head of innovation to find those innovations, and that's what we would call more like the open innovation strategy of Sparkfood, where the goal is not only to invest, but it's also to do some trend watch and technological watch for the rest of our portfolio.
Any challenges that you've experienced in the past that startup founders should know about working with you? Maybe you were the one, at the origin of the problem.
I think the main one that I see is a cultural fit. So we know that startups might have a different culture as the corporation in terms of speed, in terms of risk aversion, in terms of many different things. And so this is always something we try to assess before doing the investment and the collaboration, is how flexible both parties are. Are we able as a corporate to have some more flexible and agile processes? And for that, we have a specific team that is supposed to be more agile than the proper corporation. And on the startup side, can they understand that we have more compliance, we have more reporting duties, and we can adjust them, but we cannot remove them totally. So the cultural fit, I think, is super important. And what we always try to do once we've done the investment is to do some workshop and sessions where both sides explains the real constraints and share real feedbacks, trying to build this trust relationship where we are able to really work together and not against each other. Thank you.
Same question for you.
Two things. First is a quick one. Have a plan. Make sure that there is a good, robust, long-term plan in place, but obviously one that you're prepared, be prepared to adapt and have a plan B and a plan C. Secondly is on valuation. I would always encourage founders to be realistic on valuation. We've seen, it's not the best market right now for raising capital, and we've seen lots of down rounds in the market. That's never great, obviously, for a founder. To Anouk's earlier point about not wanting the founder to be too diluted in the early stages, again, being realistic on valuation is a way to ensure against that, because once the business is successful, the valuation will come. So, yeah, I would always urge a founder to be realistic and patient when it comes to valuation.
As we're about to wrap up, and I see that we have startup founders ready to come on stage and pitch. Any last piece of advice, something you'd like to share with them, maybe how they can work with you, and one last words for us today. Richie?
Take the time to listen and understand what our objectives are. We'll always do the same with any startup, any potential investment, but don't kid yourself. Be really clear with that corporate investor what they're really looking for. And if you feel that you're not aligned to their strategic objectives, call it early. Don't go into something that might prove to cause friction later.
Thank you. Anouk?
I would say be careful while looking at all the legal documentation and contracts that you are about to sign, because we've seen crazy things from other corporates where they sometimes try to control the cap table in a way with crazy liquidation preferences or stuff like that. They have their legal entity internally. They are experts. So get some external help to review the legal documentation and make sure you're not putting yourself in a difficult position for the rest of the raisings.
We should have spoken about this as well. So if you want to talk to them afterwards, please come to us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks all.